Welcome everyone to the VIBE EDU podcast. As we are on episode 3 of this social emotional learning, aka SEL series that we're on. And to kick things off, the wonderful and talented and fantastic Kim Gameroz is going to read off a question that she got from her community. But before we begin, I just want to say that I also have two awesome gentlemen with me, TJ Vari and Mitch Weathers. So great to see everyone. As my name is Joshua Stamper, and we're going to get into social emotional learning. Go ahead, Kim.
So, I have my community, and it's filled with teachers, all grade levels, including special ed teachers too. And we also have learning environment specialists and coaches. And so this came from a coach in a school, and she gets to go in and support all her teachers. And the question was to her community cohort group. So I wanted to start with this. And after I read it, I want to know what you guys would tell this person. Okay. Like, what advice would you give her? So she says, "Good morning, fabulous ladies." That's all of us in our cohort. "I know I've been MIA, but I could really use your help. Yesterday, I was checking in with students who rated themselves rarely when asked, overall, do you feel like you belong at your school?" And I loved this. Sorry, I'm going to press pause because TJ, in episode 1 of the series, you said social emotional learning is all about belonging. And so I kind of was like, oof, this is really good. Okay. A 5th grade girl reported she rated herself this way because her classmates have not been very welcoming. When asked her to tell me more about that, she proceeded to say that they make fun of her when she answers a question wrong. When she asks if she can join in a game at recess, she is told no. And she says kids curse at her and one another frequently. When I spoke with the classroom teacher, her response was, "She's not wrong. This group of kids are mean to each other." I asked what kinds of things they are doing to build a classroom community. Some of her responses include greeting students, and doing a feelings check-in each morning, morning meetings and closing circles. They have talked about social emotional chain reaction. I went to my admin to problem solve, and their response was, I'm going to say, use a bullying prevention boxed curriculum unit for 5th grade and push in and teach the lessons. Her response was, I hate box curriculums. What suggestions do you have to help repair these relationships amongst the students? The teachers are wonderful and open to try anything. So my question is to you guys, what advice would you give? I know what I said to her, but I want to know what you would say. Ooh, quiet.
I was waiting for TJ.
I have one thought just right off the bat is I'd be curious, school to home communication would be a first for me, building relationships with parents if possible, and it may not be possible because it's not uncommon for a parent to learn about how their student is behaving or acting, and they're like, what? And things can start to change. In particular, if someone's just being mean for the sake of being mean. So, but not always possible.
Okay.
I don't know that I want the push-in strategy because that just puts a lot more work on the 1 or 2 people who would be doing that push-in work.
Is the push-in meaning the teacher would not be the one teaching those lessons from the curriculum?
Yeah.
Is that what it's meant by that?
Counselor or interventionist or something.
Negatory.
Right.
Yeah. I go back to, so number 1, I would say kudos to the teacher for checking in on kids around their sense of belonging. So I'm going to throw the praise out there. I think that we need to ask more open-ended questions about how kids feel in school. And I think we ought to ask more open-ended questions at the end of lessons and units on how we did. Like, what was good about this lesson? What did you like? What should I repeat? What should I change? Kids should have a voice in school. So kudos to this teacher. That's the first part, or counselor, whoever asked the question of the kid. I'm going to go back to, I would hope that there is a curriculum in place and that the teacher's using that along the way. So reacting with a curriculum, I don't think is nearly as good as if we have a classroom curriculum that's been unfolding. So I wish there was a question in here, have you been doing the SEL lessons that we all agreed to do wherever they came from? I think that is important to build community in the classroom to prevent some of this stuff from happening. The one thing I'll respond to, because I think the bullying and the recess are the hardest parts.
Yes.
But if this kid's answering questions wrong and the kids are making fun of her for that, as a teacher, I'm just going to set up a ton of questions for this kid in particular that I know she can answer right in front of her peers. She's going to be the smartest kid in the classroom. And I used to do that with kids who I knew were shy about responding to really hard questions. I called it having a plant. And I'd go over to the kid, a special ed kid or somebody who hasn't been sharing, and I'd say, that answer on your paper right there is right. And when I call on you, I want you to answer the question. And then a kid's the smartest kid in the room. And I would say that, smartest kid in the room, And so look at all these smart brains. I'd pump that part up for sure right away. I'll think about the bullying and the recess, but we can make this kid feel smart tomorrow.
All right. Okay. Couple red flags. The push-in model, I understand the concept because this is something that is often brought up. But I will say this, if a teacher is doing that, you're losing power in the situation by bringing someone else in. And I'd say that as an administrator, if you're wanting the admin to come in to speak to your class, you're gone. You're done. The battle is lost because right now you're saying, I don't have power over this environment, so I need to have someone else come in to then put power over you as the student or the student body. And that's not the message that you're looking for. So the push-in model, don't do that. Now, if it's someone coming in to relieve you to then go and take care of a situation as a push-in model, which is how I define a push-in, then that's different because then the teacher still has the power to go have that conversation with the student, in addition to the fact that they're showing that they're caring and loving on what's going on with that student's life to get to the bottom of what's going on with behavior. And that's what I would say with this whole bullying situation. And some of the things that we have set up for bullying is actually something that I hate with a passion. So for instance, a stay away agreement. This is something, especially at secondary levels, that gets put in all the time. And I hate it because it's not actually teaching the skills necessary to work through hard relationships, right? So obviously there's something going on in bullying. There's something going on in that child's life with them individually that they're now projecting something negative to another child to make themselves boosted up and that child boosted down, right? So a stay away agreement is just saying, don't ever talk to each other. Don't ever be in each other's space. Well, how as an adult is that a skill that is necessary for survival? It's not. It's not real life. And so how are we actually putting things in place to build the skills necessary for that child to work through adverse situations and for the other kid too who's doing the negative behavior to come together and build the skills necessary for them to be successful too? And this is similar to what Mitch is talking about all the time with executive functioning, right? So what is that teach piece and where does that exist both with the child that's experiencing the negativity and the other student that is pushing off the negativity? And so I would just really ask those admin, like, what does it look like for you in your bullying situation and the process that is in your student code of conduct or wherever it lies, where you're actually teaching the skills necessary and not just looking at purely punishment.
So good. So when I was dreaming up like what our conversation was going to kind of sound like today, I had this fifth grader in my brain, and it's really interesting because fifth grade kind of popped up in this message. But when I was in the classroom, again, I taught littles, I taught first graders, and fast forward, a student of mine was now in fifth grade and he had some major social learning challenges. I will say it like that. Okay. So undiagnosed something or other is what I'm kind of saying, but social learning challenges. Okay. And this child in fifth grade was outside on the playground and every single day needed body and brain needed to be swinging on the swing for an extended period of time because that's how he could regulate himself before he went back into classroom. Okay. And there were some girls, I want to say they were little. I want to say they're probably third grade girls. Okay. Who every single day on purpose with intention, they would go and they would count on him and they would stare at him, right? In that little sassy little look, going, I'm going to count on you so that you get off, because what would happen? It would stir something up. He would get upset about it, and they liked it. So when you're talking about bullying, right, and doing something with intention over and over and over again to the same person, I'm going to call it what it is. What ended up happening was noon duty supervisor didn't know how to handle situation and did the whole keep away from each other thing, which then did not support the kid and did not support those girls at all. And actually got to a point where they decided, adults supervising decided that he couldn't swing on the swing at all. He needed to choose something else. I love your reactions. Yep. That's what they decided to do. Now, since this child and I had a amazing, of course, relationship, and I understood his body and his brain and what he needed, we had a conversation, because again, this doesn't ever go away. These are skills that you need to tap into, right? Social and emotional skills. And our conversation was more about what does it look like in your brain when you see somebody even walking towards the swing to count on you, right? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And we drew out what that looked like and felt like. And then tapping into the skills, I was like, but guess what? You've got to be flexible, because they're going to come. Either it's going to be those girls or somebody else. That's what we do on the swings. That's what's expected. Okay. And talking about hidden rules and expected behaviors, I know we've talked about that before in episodes. And so we drew, how could you defeat whatever it is that's going on in your brain? How could you defeat it so that you could be flexible, so that you could regulate yourself, be calm, get off the swing. And then again, you can do what's expected and you can count on whoever it was so that you can again stay regulated. That was what we did together. But that's like, I'm putting in air quotes, that would be like a curriculum. That'd be like a lesson. And by the way, I'm not your teacher anymore. So what does that look like and sound like? So now fast forward, talking about this classroom and the bullying situation that's going on there, my brain went to the first thing I want the teacher to talk about. And with the, assistance of somebody else coming in, sure, but I want it to be teacher specific. How do we want to feel at school? And what we need to do in order to feel that way. And if you want to feel a sense of belonging, right? We want to feel like we belong here. We all do. I, as your teacher, want to feel that way. You, this child, the girl, also, how many of the rest of you want to feel like you belong? You all do? Great. What do we, all of us, need to do in order to feel a sense of belonging? That is part one. Part two is going to be, and again, that could be like a morning meeting conversation, but doesn't ever go away, because you're front loading with that all day long before group work time. Remember, we said we want to feel like we belong. What are you going to do during group work time to make sure that we all feel a sense of belonging today? Same thing before, outside in the playground. I mean, you're going to front load that and reflect. That's like the secret sauce. The second conversation or lesson or morning meeting intention I want you to have is around that social emotional chain reaction, which is when you choose specific behaviors, whether expected or unexpected, it makes the people around you feel a certain way, either like they belong or they feel yucky, they feel uncomfortable, right? And then we're going to treat you a certain way. And then after that, you're going to feel a certain way. So that's part two. And I wrapped it up. My response to this teacher was part three is you need to set some class goals. And that's hard to do. And kids don't understand how to set goals for themselves. And a really simple way you start with it is just, we will blank so we can, and I would use that sense of belong again, so we can feel a sense of belonging, or so we can feel like we belong. What are we going to do? Now that's written up on your whiteboard. It can be some sort of, anchor chart or something that you do. But if these are fifth graders, they also need individual goals. And it's I will blank so we can feel a sense of belonging. And that can be on a Post-it, that can be on their desk, that could be on an anchor chart. Anytime they go outside or inside the classroom, they're tapping They're posted to be reminded of what they're going to do. And that is teaching into the skills, right? Because again, like you said, Josh, like, what are you going to do? Just keep away from each other? That's going to solve all the problems? No, social. We are social beings. We have to interact with each other, and you have to understand how to regulate yourself too. So it was layered, but again, like you said, TJ, that has to come from the teacher, because that teacher's with those kids all day long. And those goals, the front loading needs to happen throughout the entire school day.
I want Mitch to say something about goals and goal setting here. My brain had gone to, while you were talking, Kim, to the fact that we need to do some reteaching of how we want to feel in school. And I wouldn't call out the situation. So that's a no-no to call out this situation. But there are two things. I'll just underscore what Kim says about reteaching some of the behaviors that the kids need in terms of how I want to feel and what that means I need to do for others to feel that too. That can happen at any time during the school year. It should have been front loaded. I'm still questioning if we have access to a curriculum, why we aren't already using it. But the other thing is, and I don't know if this is a teacher skill deficit that needs help, or if we just need to remind the teacher, there's some noticing that's not going on here. If the first time we're reading this and the teacher says, yeah, that's true, I'm worried that we noticed kids having bad behavior towards one another and we didn't intervene and do something about it. I don't want to call tons of attention to it, but the push-in part for an admin or counselor, in my mind, would be just to observe the classroom to see if there's stuff going on in there that the teacher's not noticing, and then increasing the teacher's ability to notice some of these things in small groups and in station work and stuff that's happening. I've seen it myself, but bad behavior should not be going on in a classroom of all places, and we don't know about it. Hallways, recess, cafeteria, sometimes we don't get it all, but we need to know everything that's going on in our classroom. So that's the other part that I would double down on.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the teacher that we're not talking about this teacher, Kim, that you're mentioning, of course, but what I've seen, and I think that's wise, TJ, not push in to Josh, to your point of like, I'm going to come in as an administrator and shut this down, right?
Yep.
It's coming in as a community, right? And, one of the best professional developments you can ever do as a teacher is to film yourself from the back of the room without anyone knowing there's a camera there, and then sitting down with a trusted colleague and watching it. It's just like, whoa. I mean, it's just a different perspective, right? And what I've seen in those, being that person that comes in, whether as a department chair or just a colleague, it's poor lesson planning. And in my first book, I call them gray areas in our lessons. And when we have these gaps of time that are left undefined, that's where bullying takes place in the classroom. They tell stories about it where there's just, it was kind of like, oh, we're just getting going. It takes 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. It's like, well, what's happening though? What's happening in that corner of the classroom? What's happening over there? Was like those things. And not to be like, like every, like authoritarian or anything, but it's just one, use of the time for teaching and learning. But those undefined spaces can be really dangerous for some kids and feel unsafe. So I think that's worth exploring too. And then just for TJ, a shout out, a big Lebowski thing is I think it's worth saying that this aggression will not stand, man. Like,
it will not stand.
That kids need to know that this is not like, there is a zero tolerance for bullying. And if that's not, and I think that's a school thing, but that really, I believe that, like, there's got to be across this line, you do not, like that type of thing. I'm drawing a line. And when we talk about, bullying and students feeling safe, that's a line we have to draw very clearly, so that all of what you're saying, Kim, is I think your next book should be on bullying and what to do. Honestly, that was really well said. But I also think you're crossing a line. Kim is 100%. No, but I think Like, and I'm just thinking back as a 9th grade teacher and having 42 kids in the class and having, it would get wild sometimes. And as I learned, first few years, that first day or first week, I would make that very clear.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Mr. Weathers. And again, this is secondary. This is 9th grade, but this is kind of how it rolls. You've probably heard about me. I'm really nice, and kids like my class. I know that. And it'll stay that way as long as you're nice. And if you're not, you're going to see a side of me that you never want to see again. And the first time I had to bring it, I brought it, and not like but it was just like, no,
Throwing
certain
dice.
things that, no, but I mean, there's certain things and that was one of them, was bullying. People have to feel included, like they belong here and they feel safe. And if you infringe upon that, that's somewhere you don't want to go. And I'd love to hear maybe your thoughts on that, Kim, for the smaller kids. I think it's the same thing. Like, this aggression cannot stand. And now we need to be proactive about it. But, and I'll say one more thing, because TJ asked about the goal setting. Yes, all day long. What I heard you say, Kim, is depending on the age, depending on where they are, grade level or, developmentally, is it a group goal? Is it a individual goal? And knowing some of that from your second book, people can glean that, right? But what I heard you say is it's a statement. It's not a laundry list.
Right.
Right. And so it's this one thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to have it put somewhere so I see it all the time and I'm reminded. And not only am I just going to leave that up to chance, I'm going to have some routines in place that I do this thing. Like with Organized Binder, tab A, the first thing you see is the goal setting template. We set goals every 6 to 8 weeks, and it's one goal with a daily task. And that's the thing I want you to try every day. And so building in those routines, it could be just tapping that, whatever it might be, so that it's always front of mind. It's not like, oh, we set the goal once, I hope it works out.
Right.
It's like, no. So I've kind of said 3 things there, but anyway,
I think
you need to write a second book.
No, I just wrote down bison is what I wrote down, because we created the bison mentality all around that. Be intentional so others notice. And that is your goal setting. I want to be intentional by, what are you going to do? I'm going to ask somebody new to play with me, by scooting over so that another person can come sit at our table, by getting out my materials quickly, by keeping my hands calm. No, I think of TJ every time, keeping my hands calm. So others notice.
You're doing a really good job at that, team, right now, TJ, because you're not even on mute. Yeah.
He's just like, hold on for dear life.
Okay, but hold on. TJ's would be intentional by crossing my arms so others notice my calm hands. Like, that's honestly what you're doing. You're embracing the bison mentality, but it could be intentional by something so others notice a sense of belonging. And that is why I wrote Becoming the Bison from an adult perspective. How can you be intentional so that others, meaning your colleagues, meaning your community or your students, notice the things that you want them to notice, right? I want them to notice that we're all in this together, that it's not done in isolation. And that is the bison mentality, because it's freaking hard to do. And we need to go into the tough. You go into the storm like the bison. I mean, that truly is, you guys, when I think of social emotional learning, this is the mindset. These are the things, these are the action steps that everybody needs in order to make social emotional learning actually work.
Kim, can I go back to something you brought up as far as the goals or expectations and the
anchor chart?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Twisted my words. But something that I had to do in talking about that push-in model, to what TJ was talking about before too, is like, as an administrator, I came in to co-facilitate. So, right, that was a partnership that was constructed, but I had a teacher and she's amazing. She was a team leader at the time. She's now a counselor, just doing beautiful work. But she was having a really difficult time with 6th grade class. It was smaller. It was mostly boys, and they were very active, handsy. very off task, right?
No.
It was whack-a-mole. I know this sounds like a rare occasion for classrooms, but she was having a difficult time. And so what we did was relationship agreements, right? So it was, what do we want as far as the relationship between peer to peer, peer to teacher, and teacher to peer? And they ate it up.
Yeah.
And what we did was we printed it out. We put it on every single student's desk. We put it up in the classroom. Teacher had it and mentioned it every single day. And literally overnight, it was a change in the dynamic of the class. And then other students started to, point to other students, oh, you're not doing, and they would point to the chart or the relationship agreement and say, oh, you're not doing this, right? And they signed it, and it was this whole community partnership, and they had ownership, right? They felt like they had ownership of that environment, and what they knew individually was going to make them successful, but other people successful too. And they knew, they were very honest about the behaviors that existed prior to that got them off task. And the true goal was to learn and to be better readers. It was a reading class. And so I'm just going to throw that out there. But then I also wanted to pinpoint, Kim, when you were talking about that individual teaching moment with the kid. One, you modeled the behavior. Two, you provided like an actual scenario for them, which probably was some role playing. And then the last piece is that you provided scripted prompts for that student who didn't have the skills in that situation to be successful when it came time for that scenario to occur, because most likely that adverse situation is going to occur again. So what are we doing as the adult to not only teach them skills, but then also give them and fill that gap that exists? Because a lot of times the kids don't have any knowledge or don't even know the response or the way to make the situation better. And so I just wanted to say kudos, and then I want to shout those three things out because that's what I picked up from that example that you provided.
I love that. I mean, I think of that kid often because a lot of years have passed. And when you're a kid that is born with a brain that makes the social world very, very tricky for you, and you have adults who also don't understand how to speak your language and coach you into the skills that are lagging, it can be really scary. And when you talk about, we were talking a little bit that last time about that study, and we're talking about the effects of mental health. That's what happens, guys. When you have adults around you that don't understand you and don't understand how to coach into all of that, then you end up like severe shame. I'm going to say shame because you don't understand what's wrong with you. And this happens. I mean, I sometimes joke about how I have a magnet on me, literally wherever I go. I feel like wherever I go, I meet lots of people that have social learning challenges. And it's almost like there she is. She understands my brain. She can help me. Even at trick-or-treating on Halloween, you guys, to have kids come up to me. And one kid, he was like, hi, my name is so-and-so. And I was like, dude, I know you. I live right across the street from you. This is, ready for this? In college, right? And so when you're thinking about the navigation of the social world, social emotional learning, if you do not hit the kids that really, really struggle, you're doing it wrong. You've got to hit everybody. You've got to support everyone.
Hey, Kim, am I one of those people that you think has a hard time navigating the social aspects of the world? I feel like you're helping me each and every episode. So
that's why you're drawn to her.
I know. You do like me.
Yeah. And I call it still hands, remember, because I have to keep them still from tapping. But I also want to remind folks too that this is all environmental. And so I'm upset that it's this far into the school year and any kid feels that way. But I also want to administratively and through teaching and learning, I want to prevent this from ever happening again. And I want to say too that it's hard because it means that we have to take on the responsibility that we have to have our own self-regulation in environments that are sometimes hard to manage. But we also have to be able to manage individual students. And I think there's a component of this there. We have to manage peer-to-peer interactions, and there's a component of this there. We have to manage whole classroom interactions, and even school culture can escalate this. And I think it's really important for school leaders and teachers and counselors to think about the environment and to think about like these pillars of management. It's not just managing the class, because we say classroom management all the time, but it's really managing the environment, managing the culture, manage each individual kid every day and their interactions with their peers, whole group, partnering, small group. I'm telling you that I believe it's hard, but one of the first steps is acknowledging that that's part of the job, not just teaching the kids the content, but creating an environment that supports learning. And yeah, I hope that's cerebral for people. Like, I hope that's something that sticks with people to think about and talk about, because it's 6 or 7 different ways that you're constantly weighing. See how? Yeah. Well, that's just because, you know, my Italian background. We talk.
Sorry, my teenagers got me trained 6, 7.
Come on.
Oh,
You know.
I didn't even pick up on that part. I don't even know what that means.
I don't either, TJ.
Oh,
Nor do
God,
I
you're
want to understand it. I
Thank
say
you,
that
Kim.
all
At
the
least you got the joke.
Got you.
time. Jeez.
7 or 8. It's 7 or 8 different ways.
9 or 10.
It's 9 or 10 different
I
ways.
don't know. Could be 5 or 10. I don't know.
think-
But you're right, though. Sorry, Kim. To
What?
the point of how hard the job is. But what you're speaking to, I think what we're all speaking to, is the hidden curriculum, right? Like, this job is not just about content. It is about content because we learn to read and do basic mathematics and all that, right? But if you've ever spent any time in the classroom or as a school leader, you're like, well, that's kind of, we get there eventually if we're aware of and making explicit the hidden curriculum. And that's not easy.
I was going to say, the work that I do, especially with teachers, is equipping them, empowering them, right? So that they can teach kids how to manage themselves, so that then you can do your job. You can teach. But that takes, and we said this from the very beginning in episode 1, it's a lot. It's a lot of, this is the way the world works. These are the things that you need to be aware of. And again, if you're born with a brain that makes all of that very, very tricky for you, even kids that, like, I've had nonverbal autistic kids in my classroom too. So if you're talking about that, that's an extra layer, right? But if you all speak the same language and you have, like, I think of you now often, Mitch, with like the clarity and the modeling and the routine. If you are doing that with all these things and you have systems that run your classroom, then you are doing social emotional learning correct. Happening. It is the air that you breathe. It is the plate. And I had a teacher even recently, she said to me, cutest thing, she goes, my plate is cracking. My plate is cracking. And I was like, no, the plate isn't cracking. But she was like, when it comes in, you know, with new curriculum or administration and, you know, all these demands and parent emails, you do feel like this sense of overwhelm that like the plate could crack at any moment when you have this big behavior or an extra layer or something. But if you can stay solid with, you have your herd, you have your people, this is the good stuff. This is the stuff that's within you so that you don't have to manage everything else. Then I think that teaching can feel lighter and it can feel better for everyone.
Yeah, one more thing.
Oh.
Go ahead, Mitch.
No, go ahead, TJ. I can remember.
No, I was going to just say
You'll
one more
forget
thing.
what you were going to say, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that's
remember.
true.
This
It
is
might
true.
be gone.
We've established that.
The work that Joe and I do, though, also would have supported the capacity of the leaders. And I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but we would have been in that classroom at least 8 times already. And so, you know, and I did the math in my head around where we are in the school year and how many visits we would try to train leaders to do informally to build a culture of both instructional leadership, but presence from administration. We could have picked up on this earlier if we were there more often. And I would love to know, maybe Kim, you can ask, how many official observations or informal observations have been done. We talked about this on some previous episodes, so go back and listen to them. But that's the culture of improving and teaching and learning, improving the school culture. We might have picked up on this had we been in there 4 times in September, 4 times in October, and so on. So there's also some leadership that we can work on in schools, and I think that's really important. And who knows?
Supervision too.
Yeah.
Sorry, TJ. I was just thinking, like, you said recess, and I was thinking like in the hallways and some of these other, spots where teachers may not be. I mean, that is the responsibility of leadership to make sure those kids are feeling safe, both physically and emotionally. So what does the supervision layout look like for the campus also? Because I'm guessing that when there's not an adult, then these students are feeling
get worse.
Yeah. Like they have the space to now do it even more so. So that's also something as far as that leadership lens goes to make sure that all areas of the school are a safe space for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an opportunity to build collective community. Like, are we all in this together? We're seeing this theme happening, even if it's just in this one class. And the leadership can't be in every, you're not omnipresent, right? And teachers need their prep time, and they need to, I'm not saying that either, but I think I've experienced it, an opportunity where we're like, hey, we're all in this together, right? We're getting this collective efficacy around kids feeling safe. So I'm going to eat my lunch as a teacher in that little dark corner over there, or whatever it is, outside at the picnic table. And we would do that around campus because it was lively. So what I hear us saying, and Kim, you definitely leading the charge on this, is that we can't make assumptions about what kids know to do and how to behave. And it's so easy to do that. I mean, well, come on, don't be a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's that mean? What's that look like? So if we can start from that place, and you'd mentioned clarity modeling and the routines of it all. If that's the beginning to what you keep saying, TJ, is like, it's November.
Yeah.
Well, it's November. Like, well, what if all of this hidden curriculum work happened from day one? How would that start to influence? Because when you do get to November and this is happening, it's overwhelming as a teacher. What do I do? How do I, what do I do now? Not that it can't be changed, but we can't make any assumptions.
Is it right if I wrap things up?
Go ahead.
Sure.
All right. Just to be very transparent with everyone, I got to go pick up a kid. So we're going to wrap this up because I've got like a million kids.
It's so many more things I wanted to say, Josh.
I know, Mitch. But you know what? The good thing is, and for everyone, we've got another episode coming up where we're going to actually close social emotional learning down for the 4-part series. But if you've been watching on YouTube or on Spotify, I've been throwing up the jump into the comments here, or this banner, because we want to know what you're thinking. And we just got a comment this morning, actually. I saw a email notification about someone that absolutely loved what TJ was talking about on the last episode. Because TJ, you're 100%, buddy.
I'm always 100%.
with your calm hands. So I just want to let
still
bruises on his arms by the end of these episodes.
Yeah, right. But we love the
aggression will not stand. I'm being bullied on the show.
Let everybody hear what you do with when you're sitting there.
Yeah. So if you ever hear that, between the tapping and my French bulldog snoring, it's just pure chaos for the listeners. So we appreciate you tuning in each week and just, listening to this chaos. But we are excited about next week as we're going to wrap this up. But if you have any questions for us, we are going to do a mailbag episode in between this series and our new series, which we haven't discussed the topic yet. So you're going to have to stay tuned for that. But we would love to get more questions. I see that I have 2 in our bank as I'm getting a million text messages. And I would love for more comments to be put in there with questions for us to address. And that could be on SEL. It could be on prior topics that we've done in the past. But we love hearing from you. So make sure you're doing that. Hit that subscribe. Share out the episodes. We are continuously seeing growth in the listenership, and we just appreciate this community so much. If you need anything, our links are in the show notes. As always, we provide a ton of services for educators and look forward to hearing from you very, very soon. With that, thank you so much. And we will see you again next week.